Are we there? Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, good. I hadn't heard anyone. I know we're waiting.
Sorry, Lynn, you can just hold for a second. We're going live on YouTube, so you just hold for 1 second. We'll be up in a second. I'll let everyone know when we start the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
We're ready, Chairman.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Chandler. I'm the chair of the Kentucky State Board of Elections, and this is our regular August meeting, August 18th of the State Board of Elections. I welcome everybody, and the first thing I'd like to do is call the roll of the membership. And I will start with, I will go in order, and you all can introduce yourselves if you will. Dwight?
Dwight Sears, member, Pulaski County.
Corey?
Corey Skolnick, member, Jefferson County.
James?
James Lewis, member, retired county clerk.
George?
George Russell, member, Franklin County.
Deanna?
Deanna Brangers, member, Jefferson County.
Mr. Secretary?
Michael Adams, Secretary of State, non-voting member.
Sherry Whitehouse, our only absent member at the moment, has said that she couldn't get on the call at the start, but she should be joining us shortly. I also want to introduce a brand new appointment to the board, and we're very excited to have her on the board. She will be the Democratic representative of the county clerks. She's going to be James Lewis's counterpart. I understand they know each other very well, but she served as county clerk in Ballard County in far western Kentucky for 41 years, which we discussed this a little earlier offline. You got to be doing something right if you can hold an office for 41 years. It's Lynn Lane from Ballard County. And Lynn, we welcome you. Can you say hello to everybody? Lynn?
Lynn, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Lynn's phone's on mute at the moment. I don't know whether can you hear us, Lynn? Oh, well, Lynn may be having some technical difficulties. She will, I'm sure, join us here shortly. But anyway, we'll let her introduce herself when she comes on. We have a quorum, and we will move into the agenda. The first item is to read and approve the minutes for July 13th, 2020. I don't know if you all have read them or not, but I will be happy to read them if you'd like me to, but I would prefer to have somebody make a motion to approve the minutes if you all are happy with them.
So
Anybody? James, a motion by James Lewis to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dwight Sears. All in favor, say aye.
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 Very good. The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda are county boards of election appointments. This is pursuant to KRS 117.035 sub 2 for July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2024. So these are 4-year terms. And according to my agenda, it appears that the Democrats have no counties outstanding, and the Republicans have 11 counties outstanding. And for those who don't know, a Democrat and a Republican, or one of each, is required to be appointed to each county board of election throughout the state, all 120 counties. And the state board of elections has to approve those appointments. You all, I suppose, have a chart in front of you with names of the folks on the lists. Do we need to approve these now, Jared, or has the staff already approved them?
No, since these are new appointments, we leave that to the full board to approve. So if you want to provide a motion, or someone wants to provide a motion, historically, we select the name at the top of the list and go from there. I do have a comment on that specific issue probably in the next section, but if you want to perform them as historically selected, I'm more happy to do that first.
All right, let's go ahead and do that. Let's start with the Democratic list. Again, there seem to be appointments for every county, all 120 counties. Does anybody have any? Well, let me have a motion first to approve this list.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, George.
I make a motion that we approve the first name on each list.
That's all right. Let's do the Democratic list first, George, if we could, because I think there's some discussion that needs to be had on the Republican list.
Okay.
All right, that's a motion to approve the Democratic list. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Member Brangers. Do we have any discussion at all on the list? And we'll discuss some further issues related to it in the next item. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the list is approved. The Democratic list is approved. Now, the Republican list has 11 outstanding counties. Jared, would you like to discuss that for us?
Certainly. So KRS 117035, parent 4, parent 5. If the State Board of Elections does not receive a list from either the county executive committee under subparagraph 3 of this paragraph, or the chair of the state committee under subparagraph 4 of this paragraph, then the State Board of Elections shall appoint a qualified resident of the county at its next regular meeting in September following the election of persons to statewide office or within 3 months of the vacancy. This is something that I am loath to do. I would not like to interdict into the county's political affairs. I'd much rather prefer the committees at the local level select these, and if not the local committee, then definitively the party at the state level. If Member Brangers, if it's okay with her, what I would recommend is if we can touch base with the RPK and see if they can't reach out to the local boards, and if one does not exist in those counties, then perhaps they can help locate an individual that would be a suitable fit for that county board of elections. We have until September, obviously, and I wanted to bring it up at this meeting just to make sure we get this done.
Jared, I had this conversation with them. Well, I'd had the Sheila had called me and we discussed it, and then I passed the information along to the party, and I think they were going to be reaching out, trying to put a list together. But in all honesty, I need to follow up with them to see where things stand on that.
Okay.
Can we go ahead and approve the 109 counties that we have names for and wait on the 11?
I think that would be appropriate.
All right, I will accept a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. A motion by Member Brangers. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Sears. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and we have now approved the entire Democratic list and 109 out of 120 counties on the Republican list. And Member Brangers will be following up with the Republican Party of Kentucky to get those outstanding 11 filled. The next item on the agenda is 4 specific replacements pursuant to the same statute. These counties had some issues, I think, and Jared, you want to address those? Do you want to address them one by one?
No, I think just as a group. So just to inform the board, so it looks as if the normal process is the county will select a group of names and send that to the state party. In this case, it was the Democratic Party. Those names were sent from the county to the state at the party level. And from my understanding is there was a transposition error at some level. So the names were inverted. So when staff took those and we appointed per the both historical context as well as the directive of the board, we selected the top name on that list. Some of these individuals were not ready to serve. I think they were there as filler to make sure that there was a full list, but the name on the top of the list that should have been there is the individual who both the county party and state party would want to serve in that role. So what we've done is we've put these people back on for selection, and they include Johnson, LaRue, Madison, and Woodford. Madison County is a replacement. And then also just to inform the board too, Clerk Brown in Laurel County, they have a replacement. They just sent that to us, so we were unable to put it in the board book, but staff will ratify that this coming week and then have the board approve it for its final approval next month. But we'll make sure that Laurel also has their appointment ready to go. But if the board would like to approve all 4 of these, we will select the top name at the top of the list.
Okay, so my understanding is that of the names that we just approved, there are 4 that were that did not comport to who the counties wanted, and we're now changing those 4 to appoint another person.
Yes.
All right. Any questions? Can I have a motion to approve these new appointments, these replacements?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to appoint these replacements.
Thank you. There's a
Second.
motion from Member Kolnick. Who made the second?
George.
Member Russell made the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, very good. We've got most of our complement taken care of on the county boards of election. And we will now move on to the 5th item on our agenda, and that is the financial reports. We have Ms. Rachel Pointer with us today. Hello, Rachel.
Hi.
Look forward to meeting you in person. Rachel is new to the staff, relatively new. You've had enough time, I assume, to get your arms around some of these finances. So we're looking forward to hearing your report.
I'm still fairly new, so if you have questions about things, I can get back to you if I, for some reason, need to do a little bit more digging into getting you the accurate answer for that. Just to kind of go over, we're starting July is the beginning of the fiscal year 21. So everything that is reflected in this report is taking into account the end of fiscal year 20. So our last board meeting was a little early in the scheme of the year-end closeout. So we did have some transfers that happened at the end of June. And so they are captured on this July report. The first page there is just your general expenses of your general fund based out by object class. And then at the bottom, you had a separate report previously for 1099 reportables. That is at the bottom. It's condensed to 1 page so that you can see that all together. Included on the next page is a list of an individual breakout of vendors and prices that comprise those numbers on that total page on the front. Do you all have any questions about any of the general fund expenses for July?
Has everybody had a chance to look over those expenses? And if so, does anybody have any questions about them? Anything jump out at anybody? All right, please carry on, Rachel. Thank you.
All right, no problem. And just to keep in mind, there are going to be some of those expenses that are going to be quarterly expenses. So you may see a little spike there in July. And then for the next couple of months, you won't see those in place. And then once we move into, after the list of vendors, then that will go into, oh, sorry. That will go into looking at what we have spent in July for our individual security grants. The first one is the HAVA Title I. And so we did have a couple of movements there originally. Before the CARES Act funding was set up in EMARS to make those purchases, we had to purchase them out of the HAVA grant. And so now we have corrected that, put those back into the HAVA grant and move them to CARES Act. So those transfers that you see there are reflective of that. The second page is the 2018 election security grant, which there's another movement there, and then just some of our contractor expenses. After that is the 2020 election security grant. And then the last one there, the one after that is the CARES Act grant. So that's everything that we have booked in July reflective on the CARES Act. And the total there at the bottom is what we have. That is just of our federal funding. So that does not include our state match. That's just the federal that we have spent. And then the next page is going to be a summary of all of our funding and all of our interest. Since I'm acclimating to how you guys want this presented, does anybody have any questions or anything going along?
Any questions about the finances from anybody? Well, I've got one question, Rachel. I'm curious about the CARES Act funding. Do we have a final total of how much money was spent in the primary of CARES Act money to get the primary done?
I have a current breakdown between federal and state match so that we can get a good estimate. We still have some coming in for some reimbursements to counties that turned their reimbursements in a little late for return voter ballot. So we haven't got all of those back yet. So we do have a good number, which I can email you that total after this if you would like. It's an individual breakdown of expenses. But we are still waiting on a few things to come in. So a few
Richard,
stragglers.
do you have a broad number just to throw the board for general estimations? It doesn't have to be exact.
Sure, give me 1 second to pull that up.
I think this is a piece of information that would be interesting to anybody watching with the public, because I think they're curious as to how much money was spent in the primary election over and above the normal costs of an election. And they will also be interested to know, as we get to it, how much the general election is predicted to cost.
So far in estimates of invoices that we're still coming in, taking into account, right now with federal funding and state match funding, it's right at 4.3 million.
That's what you think that ultimately the primary roughly costs over and above normal expenses?
That is how much we have spent out of CARES Act only right now for
Rich, does that leave us, I think, I want to say the last estimate was like around 2.5 million left over, a little less than that at this point.
yeah, less
All
than
right.
that.
Okay.
Less than that.
Hey, Rachel, do you know how the state match factors into that? Has that money been spent, or is that money in the escrow account, or how does that work?
So traditionally, we have spent a portion of federal and we have spent a portion of state. So what we try to do now is we have a total for each, and the state will be required 20% of what we were federally granted. So we can make that up. The number that I gave you there is the 4.3 is combining what we have spent federally and state. So that's a total number. And we're running about, we did have some issues at the end of the year with a lot of transferring where that funding wasn't set up originally. So we are slightly off of our 20% for state, but we have made some ground on that. So that shouldn't be an issue moving forward.
Thank you.
I don't know if I answered your question, but we do pay that up front. So
You did, thank you.
Anybody else have any financial questions? All right, thank you very much, Rachel. The next agenda item that we've got is to read and approve the emergency administrative regulations. Now, of course, this item is all important because it has to do with how we're going to run the general election. And needless to say, the fact that we're on this Zoom call speaks to the fact that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and that has caused us to have this unusual measure to change the manner of the election. And the Secretary of State and the governor have been in discussion. They used a sort of a blueprint that a work group put together to inform that discussion. And I understand that they have come up with a general agreement, but I also understand that the Secretary has some issues with that and would like to put the vote off until Thursday. So that's what I would propose that we do is pass the vote until Thursday, and we can discuss this in more detail then. If that's all right with everybody, unless there's some particular desire to discuss this before we have it finished.
Is
Can I
Thursday-
chime in just-
I'm sorry, go ahead. Secretary, please.
Just thank you. Just real fast. There's a
Ms.
draft.
Secretary.
Thank you. There's a draft that circulated late yesterday. Just to be clear, there's no dispute. There's no disagreement on any sort of principle or policy that I see in that document. I just want some time to do my due diligence to make sure that it's consistent with what the governor and I agreed to, which was already very detailed. As the governor said at the press conference, we didn't really disagree on the policy so much. It was working out the specific wording. And I want to make sure that the wording of the regulations consistent with what the governor and I went back and forth on over a long period of time. So that's all I'm trying to do. I don't want to block this in any way. I want us to get this done as quickly as possible. I just want us to have time to make sure that we got this right, because it's a very long, complicated document. Thank you.
Okay, well, of course, you sent us an email yesterday that said that it was unclear to me whether you had concerns about it or whether it was just to review it in detail. So thank you very much for that clarification. And we will look forward to a full discussion of this maybe on Thursday. That's what Jared has suggested.
With that,
Jared, do you have something that you want to?
Would that work for everyone's schedule? I don't want to leave anyone out because of their scheduling concerns. Is there a time on Thursday, the normal time at 10? Would that work for everyone, or would that be? I want to make sure that the full board has the opportunity to be here.
I've got a Thursday morning conflict. I could do Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. I've got a court hearing Friday. I'm not sure what time. Give me 1 second.
Would Thursday what time in the afternoon, Secretary, would your schedule free?
I think I'm free maybe 3 o'clock forward. on Thursday. And I just checked, my hearing on Friday is at 1:30, so I'm free the whole morning. So Thursday afternoon or Friday morning would be good for me.
Can everybody do Thursday? Can everybody do Thursday at 3 o'clock?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Can I say something really fast? Is it possible that, I mean, the portal, will we still be able to open that up on Friday? I know that's what we've been telling, based on, the governor's announcement, and the secretary's announcement. Is that still possible with this delay, the portal still being open on Friday?
Tom, I don't know if you want to weigh in a little bit. We were thinking about doing a soft, and this is, now that we're publicizing, it's not necessarily a soft opening, but we were hoping to have a soft opening prior to the weekend and then doing a full launch on Monday, if that was acceptable to the board. But if the board wants to discuss that, Tom, I want to make sure that we have, the last thing I want to do is open the portal when it's not ready and have it, not be a robust opening. Tom, do you see any or foresee any issues right now? You're on mute, Tom.
No, we still have a few little technical details we're looking at. We're making sure that we can handle what we think may be coming. It's the legal language that needs to be looked at some point, that would be a concern right now.
We just need to make sure that part of the reason why we need to finalize the emergency admin regs is so that we know exactly what the portal will have to say to be in compliance with both the recommendations of the secretary, or the executive order from the governor, and then ultimately the admin regs from the board. So
I will
have some finalizing on that, Tom. To Tom's point, I think we can get close.
I will add that, of course, it's a complex system and there's a lot to it, including the counties and the back end. We have to create and save millions of documents. We have to archive those, and the creation process is also a lengthy thing. And if we change, we've got that set up to do a certain thing. We can modify that as needed, of course, but we don't want to be modifying it like 8 hours before we go live. So I'd like to know, sooner rather than later, exactly what the reason is, what the language is. I think we're all clear on that, but that's what we've built towards is what was in those documents.
If it's acceptable to the board and the secretary, perhaps what we can do is I can work behind the scenes with the secretary. We can look at some of that language, see if we can't get that to Tom, and Tom can put some a slide deck ready for the board for our next meeting to be able to show them what the landing pages look like and kind of what the flow of the portal looks like with the augmented language specific to this election. If that works, and then perhaps what we can do again, we'll determine whether or not we have the capacity for Friday, Clerk Abner, and then potentially at the worst, I'm thinking maybe Monday we would do a full launch.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to, we do have a few concerns about the document that was sent out last night, and I'll just email all of those. I know you guys don't want to get into a discussion today probably, but I will email those to everyone. Thank you.
All right. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about relative to this? We will schedule our meeting at 3 o'clock on Thursday. It'll be a special meeting of the board to discuss how the election will take place in November and leading up to November. We've of course had a habit of talking about an election taking place on November the 3rd, but in reality, the election will just end on November the 3rd and will take place several weeks in advance up to and through November the 3rd. With that being said, is there anything else, Renisa? It's your turn on the agenda. So is there anything else that you've got to report to us or to ask us or to offer at the moment.
I just wanted to thank everyone for your work with us, and also welcome Lynn Lane. She's fabulous and will do a wonderful job, and we're all excited that she is representing us. So, and then, like I said, I'll email the concerns to everyone about the regulations. Thank you so much.
Great. And we will have a full discussion of those regulations on Thursday, at least we hope to. And we will make sure that all of that is clear and fully aired. Mr. Secretary, you're next on the agenda. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Thank you. Just real quick, I know this is a little anticlimactic, but talking about the agreement between the governor and me, I just want to hit the highlights of it. My goal and the governor's goal both were to take successes from June and carry them forward. This is a unique time, obviously, and this Zoom reflects that. I think our election in June was not just successful by our own standards, but a national success story. And I've had colleagues of both parties who are secretaries of state call me and say, how did you all do it? How did Kentucky pull this off? I'll be very honest. The plan that I gave the governor back in April came from the state board and the county clerks, a work group that we put together. I made my own changes to it. The governor made some changes to it too, but essentially it was what the work group back then came up with. We had a similar process for the November election. I know folks have been really anxious to see a plan as quick as possible, but I think it was worth the wait. I think it was worth the feedback of me checking with county clerks. I had 70 county clerks respond to questions I sent out, asking for their opinion and feedback about what we should do. I think the process benefited from having another work group, and the plan that the work group that this board and some clerks were on put together, that plan essentially was what I gave the governor, maybe 95% consistent with it. It was good for me to go to the governor with a plan that was already bipartisan. I didn't put something on his desk that was too right-leaning or unfair as a negotiating tactic. I gave him what we had all discussed that we thought was the right answer. He received that really well. He was pleasantly surprised. But that's what made this ultimately not just, I think, reasonably non-controversial. You can't please everybody, but also really good policy. I think this is the right policy. When we did this back in the spring, I was very hopeful it would be successful, but I didn't really know. I didn't have a high level of confidence because we were out on a tightrope without a net. We'd never done this before. Now we've got proof that it works, and we've got experience doing it. So I'm even more confident that the general election in November will be a success than I was back in the spring. Just real fast, what changed? Well, we're keeping the stuff that worked, that we know worked, and we're getting rid of the stuff that we think we can do better, and we're improving on that. So we're keeping absentee balloting available for people who perceive they're at risk. We don't have any arbitrary listing of health conditions that do or don't qualify. We don't have any arbitrary age range of whether you're of an age or not that makes you vulnerable. If you made it 60, then people who are 59 would be upset, and so forth. So we have no specific requirement. And that's consistent with our current law in Kentucky. Age, disability, or illness lets you vote absentee. There's no specific age, no specific illness. It's the voter's subjective decision. So that's what we built on for absentee balloting. But to be clear, I know there have been concerns in this group, and county clerks of both parties have raised to me that it's not ideal to have 75% of voters voting absentee this time, just because of the scale of a general election turnout. The way that we treated early voting and in-person voting last time is we encouraged people, if they could vote absentee, to do that. That was the best choice. And if they couldn't, they could vote in person. I think we're a little bit in reverse this time. I'm really concerned about having the right to vote absentee protected for people who really need it. We encourage people to take advantage of it if they believe they need to, but I'm not going to encourage, and I doubt that we as a whole or the governor will encourage everyone to automatically vote absentee automatically. I don't want to overwhelm the system. I'm concerned about capacity. So I think the best way for people to vote if they can is to vote in person, but we're not going to shepherd everybody into one polling site on one day. We're going to have many, many more options available. We're going to have longer period of time for early voting. We're going to have Saturdays open as a mandate. Plus, we're going to have more polling stations on election day than we did last time. So in terms of what we're keeping that worked, the right to vote absentee, we're holding on to that, it worked. But we're also making changes to make it easier to vote in person. That way, people have options. Last time they had options, but some options were more available than others. This time, every option is going to be freely available to everybody. I've not seen any voter upset about the options that voter has. I've only seen people upset about the options other voters have. Well, that's wrong. So this is a much better system, as good as June's was. I think this is even better. And lastly, we're going to have results on election night. They're not going to be complete. They never are. It always takes some time to get the final numbers in and certify the final results. So we'll have only unofficial results on election night, but those numbers will be, I think, a lot more comprehensive than what we had to offer the public on the night of June 23rd. I know people are very, very anxious, very impatient for immediate returns. I am too, but I do believe we'll have something to give Kentuckians on election night. Kentucky is usually the first state to report their results on presidential election night. I'd love to see us keep that tradition. We're not going to be like New York, waiting 3 weeks to find out who won everything. On the other hand, we're also sensitive to the fact a lot of voters are going to send those ballots back at the last minute. And I don't want people to be disenfranchised by the Postal Service. So we're going to allow some time for those ballots to come back before we finally certify everything. So I think this is a really good compromise. That's what it was intended to be. It's not what the governor would have written on his own. It's not what I would have written on my own, but that's kind of the point. If I wrote this, the Democrats would be dubious. And if the governor wrote this, the Republicans would be dubious. That's the whole point here. It's a bipartisan plan that should satisfy not just Republicans, Democrats, but also independents and libertarians and everybody else.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for those very kind comments about the process, about everybody involved in the process. And thank you for that very good synopsis. And we will look forward to discussing it in more detail on Thursday. But I couldn't agree with you more. I think the process has been excellent. And I think we've had a wonderful bipartisan cooperation amongst everybody. And it's really a heartening thing to see in these times. Mr. Executive Director, you're next on the agenda.
I think before I start, you might want to welcome our most recent member. I think just showing up, Member Whitehouse has just arrived.
Sherry, welcome to you. Sherry Whitehouse from Bullitt County.
Sherry, you're on mute.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your grace this morning.
Good to see you, Sherry.
We covered for you, Sherry.
Thank you so much.
And Member Whitehouse, just to inform you too, we'll be having a brief meeting on Thursday at 3 p.m. to finalize the emergency admin regs. We'll catch you up offline if you need a little, if you have any questions on that specifically. Mr. Chairman, I'll keep my remarks short. I'd like to start first by thanking both the board, the work group that was formed to help create some of those recommendations to help the Secretary and the Governor. And then ultimately, I'd like to thank the Secretary and the Governor personally. They showed that statesmanship in this time and era is still possible, and their actions have been laudable, to say the least. I think that, I, like the Secretary, have received phone calls from both the left and the right, with some complaints, but I've also received a lot of people calling us saying, thank you for protecting my right to vote. Thank you for making sure that I can vote absentee if it's right for my family, and also thanking the process to make sure that they can vote in person if that's what is right for them. So to echo the Secretary's words, I think there's a process here that should work for a lot of people across the Commonwealth, and that the goals of both the Secretary, the Governor, and the board, in which we secure elections and make them free and fair and safe, for our voters was accomplished with this. And I think that, when we have the opportunity to vote on this on Thursday, I think a lot of people will be satisfied with the result. And ultimately, what the work group product and the secretary and the governor came up with will ultimately lead to a successful election is always the want and the goal. So we'll hope for that, and we'll work our best to do that. And we'll also work our best to help provide the clerks the resources they need to provide voters on the ground the resources they need to have access to the ballot securely and safely. If there's any questions anyone has, I would like to take a point of personal privilege just to thank the staff. Over the last couple of months, they've worked incredibly hard under very difficult circumstances. Karen has come on board. We really appreciate her hard work that she's been showing here, as well as Tom, Taylor, the IT team, the admin side of the board staff have done a really amazing job working under, like I said, very difficult circumstances. A lot of us are working remotely from home. Some of us are still coming to the office. But we have a lot of gratitude for the work that they've done. And I'd also like to highlight that we congratulate Alan Hess, our IT manager, for the addition he's brought into the world, rather his wife has brought into the world that Alan has taken part in. And so Alan's going to have some sleepless nights coming in the next couple of months, but we're really happy for him and just wanted to congratulate him and his wife on their addition of 2 new twins into the world.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Jared. And I think I can speak for the rest of the board in thanking you and the staff for some incredible work that you guys have done over the last several months and will continue to do, I'm quite sure. With that, I'd like to adjourn into, or not adjourn, but move into executive session to discuss some litigation matters. And I would accept a motion to do that.
Motion to move.
Second.
Was that by you, Dwight?
Yes, sir.
And a second by Sherry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, very good. We will now move into executive session, and we will be back after executive session to finish up the public meeting. But by and large, our business is done for today, and we will be back on Thursday at 3 o'clock.
Thank you. If everyone can hold for a second, I will have Alan take us offline. I'll let you know when we're ready to be back in closed session. So if everyone could just hold for a minute, please.